a lot to do. We're running late, and so we want to be able to try to fit it all in, but we will probably go over the 3:30 ending that we said. So just putting that out there, we're going to try to stick as close to that as possible.
So we're going to have a time at the end to talk about events coming up that we hope people will engage in.
Yeah. So for now, we had just some time to walk around, to talk and chat, and so now let's get back into focusing on the agenda. So what we're going to look at right now is some sections of a panel that was put on by an organization called the Catalyst Project in the Bay just about a month ago. And the people who are speaking on the panel are who we're going to see are Alicia Garza, who's one of the co-founders of the Black Lives Matter movement, and also an organizer with other organizations in the Bay, Robbie Clark and Kamal Wilton. And we're going to be seeing excerpts of what they have to say about the Black Lives Matter movement and what the role of white people is in that movement. So we're going to watch a 15-minute clip right now. I know it's not that easy to see, so just listen.
Really listen.
All right.
I'm going to time myself because I can talk. So I wanted to start off just talking a little bit about the context and history of Black Lives Matter. Many of you may have seen it in recent months, really all over the world now, which is incredibly humbling and, again, overwhelming. But Black Lives Matter was a project that was started in 2013 after George Zimmerman was acquitted of the murder of Trayvon Martin. And what we were seeing, right, was one of the newest, most public instances of how policing operates in Black communities. And what we were also seeing was a real manifestation of how Black lives do not matter in this country. And we started this project, right, not as a call to folks who aren't clear that Black lives don't matter. We started this call as a call to Black folks, because what we were seeing after George Zimmerman was acquitted was a lot of resignation. We were seeing people saying things like, we knew that a white person, and he wasn't white, but a white person was never going to be convicted of the murder of a Black child. And why are people surprised? And we said, that's not okay. Anytime a life is taken, we should be angered. We should be anguished. And we should also stand together to make sure that not one more life is stolen. And so for us, when we say Black Lives Matter, it was a way for us to rehumanize Black people in a world that has targeted us for destruction. When we say Black Lives Matter, we also want to include more people in the conversation. So there's been a lot of talk, an important talk, about Black men and boys and men of color. But we know, right, that Black men and boys of color are not the only people who are targeted by state violence. And we need to understand that the struggle that we're in right now is bigger than police violence. It's bigger than police brutality. It's about state violence. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. So first of all, we see Black Lives Matter as a tactic to rebuild the Black liberation movement. We see Black Lives Matter as a platform through which Black people and our allies can come together to collaborate and conspire and strategize around how all of us are going to get free. But in order to do that, we need to understand the root of the problem. And the root of the problem, right, is anti-Black racism. We understand when we say Black Lives Matter, we're not just talking about Black men and boys, we're talking about Black women and girls. We're talking about Black queer folks, Black gender queer folks, Black trans folks, Black disabled folks, Black incarcerated people, Black formerly incarcerated people, Black poor people. We're talking about all Black lives. And if we're going to rebuild a Black liberation movement, it must be in the image of who Black people are. We are complex, we are diverse, We are brilliant, we are innovative, we are resilient, and it's time for us to lead. I also want to say that I've seen a lot of dialogue, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why we don't say all lives matter. But I've seen a lot of dialogue about the impact of social media, and I want to say that social media is a vehicle, but it is not the only thing that we use. It's a way to connect us, but we believe very deeply in the power of relationships, real-time relationships. I saw an article recently that described us as social media activists, and I said, oh, that's interesting. And with all due respect, I beg to differ. Patrice, Opal, and myself are organizers, and we have been organizers for many years. And for us, organizing is all about relationships. And it's about building relationships that can help us advance a shared vision for power and for liberation. And so the work that we do is not just online, it is offline in real time. Patrice is doing incredible work in Los Angeles with an organization called Dignity and Power Now that just won the first ever civilian review board for the Sheriff's Department in Los Angeles. Opal Timeti is the executive director of the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, who's visibilizing Black immigrants in a country that keeps us in the shadows. There's 500,000 Black immigrants in this country who are targeted not just for deportation, but also many different forms of state violence, because when you are Black and immigrant in this country, you are still Black. Right. And that's powerful work. And then for myself, my role is to organize Black domestic workers from across the diaspora. And I've spent many years here in the Bay Area organizing Black families against gentrification and displacement, against environmental racism, and for a world, right, where Black lives matter. So when we talk about state violence, right, oftentimes in the media what we're hearing is all of this data and information about police killings, and that's really important. But what's also state violence is people in Detroit having their water privatized. What's also state violence is Black women and girls being used as negotiating chips during times of war. What is also state violence are Black trans people being thrown away like garbage and murdered. That happens here in Oakland. It happens all over this country. And there have been several, dozens of instances of murders of Black trans people, and they haven't made the news. So we challenge each of you and each of us, we challenge ourselves to broaden out our understanding of state-sanctioned violence, to really understand a project that targets Black communities for elimination and destruction. And that is a project that was begun, right, on the heels of the Black freedom movement that flourished here in this country. That is an ongoing project, that is not over. So I want to talk a little bit about why there's been a debate, right, about why we don't say all lives matter. And first I want to say, because I see some of y'all shifting like, look, I told you all lives matter. It's true. It's true. I'm on record. All lives matter. Okay. We're all human beings. We all bleed red. And now that we've gotten that out of the way, now that we've gotten that out of the way, that's the world that we're building towards, but Lord knows we're not there. And so the easiest way for me to say it is that if we really believe that all lives matter, then that means you will fight like hell right now for Black lives. As I close, I want to say a little bit more about why this has taken off across the world. and it's really powerful. I've been getting photos from Syria, from Alaska, from Hawaii, from Palestine, from South Africa, from Mexico, Brazil, New Delhi, all over the country, all over the world. Black Lives Matter is resonating because Black lives have been forgotten.
All right.
Black lives have been pushed to the side. Black lives have been conveniently absorbed into this question of social justice without paying attention to the particular conditions that Black communities face. And when we do that, and it's well-intentioned often, but when we do that, what we do is we erase Black people from our visions of liberation. It's okay that we don't all have the same experiences. It doesn't devalue yours, and it doesn't devalue mine. But when we don't acknowledge that really there are differences between us, we don't do ourselves any favors. Each of us in this room are very different people with very different histories and very different experiences. And what we've got to do is really understand, why is that? What's behind that? And how do we take the complexity of who we are as a people, as a community, and really build a strategy from our complexity, not from our sameness. So yes, it is our job to advance what our ancestors and our elders so graciously and so courageously and so boldly fought for in our name. And our next step, right, and this is our challenge to you, is to continue to defect from a system that does not value our lives. So yes, indeed, we are looking to recruit you for a movement because that is what time it is. People want to now have a conversation about what's next after Ferguson, and I would challenge that and say, no, 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 what's about right now? People are risking their lives all over this country. There are Black Lives Matter chapters that are self-organized all over the country and are fighting back. And it's our job and your job to make sure that we have support to be able to do that. It's our job and your job to make sure that we continue to build support for a liberation movement that is growing in this country. It's our job and your job to make sure that we don't have narrow conversations about tactics and approach. There's room for everything. But what we need to make sure that we're doing is having a level of accountability to each other. We need to make sure that we are being strategic, right? And we need to make sure, honestly, that we're following the leadership of Black communities who are putting their lives on the line to fight for our collective liberation. So I think that's it. I'll close there. Thank you.